Stop relying on inspection, build quality at the source. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about a very controversial topic about reducing the amount of inspection we have and enabling our people to produce with quality at the source. So I'm going to introduce this by telling a really fun little story. And I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. This is a pretty fun story to me. We were in Japan with Paul Akers. I think our group was like 16 strong. And there was a leading manufacturing president or CEO. Anyway, he founded the company in Canada. And Japanese senseis really liked touring his manufacturing plant because they were very, very advanced lean. In fact, Paul Akers would compare his company to this other company, and they had a little bit of a healthy cooperation there. Anyway, meaning that the Japanese senseis, when they went to Paul's shop, they also were like really impressed with this other shop. So this was a pretty advanced lean leader, and this lean leader had been there to Japan with Paul Akers, I think, 6 different times. And this leader like really struggled with eliminating inspections. And I'll tell you this true story, which was really interesting to me, even with advanced lean leaders. The former CEO of Toyota Georgetown and the former vice president of Lexus, Mr. Amazawa, was talking to the group and saying, Taiichi Ohno, one of the key things, said, let's stop this end of line over-reliance on inspection because you're just pushing quality defects down the line. And a lot of these concepts came from W. Edwards Deming. And how can we build quality in at the source? Let me tell you just really quickly. And this is poka-yoke, the example that I'm going to give you right now, error proofing. But there was one example, and I've told you this story before, but where there was this piece that had to be spot welded to 2 other assemblies. And when they did the one weld and the second weld, and you put it into this machine, it would sense whether both were done correctly. And if it was, it would let it through. And if it wasn't, it would just stop the line. And we've heard of the Judoka principle with the looms, where if one of those strands broke, a little metal piece would go down an articulating arm, and if it hit one of those metal components, it would stop the entire system, and you wouldn't have a defect in the fabric, okay? You have these concepts, Judoka, which is automation with a human touch, and you have poka-yoke, which is error proofing, but the bottom line is they were building in quality at the source so that they didn't have to rely on inspection at the end, which would also result in rework and a lot of downtime. That's a really good example. But continuing the story with this manufacturing president or CEO, I can't remember what his position was, but anyway, he was talking to his team. He was like, hey guys, this is a concept that I struggle with. We're still going to maintain our inspections and just ignore this for a minute, like right in front of Mr. Amazawa and Paul Akers. So it's really funny. The Japanese people are interesting, where Paul maybe was like less willing to stop and say something contrary. Mr. Amazawa very gently was like, well, why? And started going into the 5 whys. It's very interesting. Finally, this leader got like a little bit frustrated, and I had this universe revelation moment where I was like, oh, hey, I've got a question. So I grabbed the microphone on the bus. This is maybe helpful for you and me. I said this question. I thought it was great. Let's say you couldn't inspect. Let's say it was outlawed by Canada or something, and you had to do something other than inspection to get the quality right. What would you do? And he was like, I would just quit and go to work at Home Depot. He was being really snarky, and it was really kind of an awkward moment. Really missed opportunity, in my opinion. I'm being super judgy about it. And Kevin and some of us started to actually think about it. What could you do? Well, you could enhance training. You could implement some of the Judoka principle, where you have automation with the human touch. You could have poka-yoke, which is error proofing, where you have templates or guides or lasers or checks. If you wanted to get quality right at the source, you could enable the team to stop the line, implement, and end on. And we came up with like 15 or 16 different ways where if you couldn't inspect and you had to get good quality, you could template, you could shadowboard, you could automate, you could create processes where the system or the line would shut down, where it would be easy for somebody to see right there in the moment. A number of really key ideas where you wouldn't actually have to rely on inspection, because if you think about it, you are letting that product pass through a number of other stations all the way to the end. By the time you inspect it, then you literally have to shut everything down. You have multiple defective parts and you have to go down and figure it out. It's going to waste an incredible amount of time. The problem is our brains are untapped when it comes to this concept, where literally if you grabbed a couple people and said, you can't inspect, I've just handcuffed you, you can't inspect, you're going to jail if you inspect, what would you do to get quality right? You can come up with 15 to 115 ideas. And which one of those would you want to implement to get it right the first time? And one idea that is quality at the source from the beginning, instead of inspecting it large batch down at the end with this massive punch list, is to literally finish as you go and accept the substrate as you go zone to zone in zone control, or literally to create templates out in the field, or literally to attach the piece, or literally to have the trade partner behind you to accept it and sign it off, or you could come up with at least 15 ideas how to error-proof something right there, quality at the source, so we don't have to batch inspections later on and push down defective work. And this is more of an aspirational goal for all of us because we haven't looked at all the ways where we can eliminate the dependence on inspection and where we can put this in place right from the beginning. And it's really quite remarkable every time I've seen one of these ideas be put in place from the start. And so literally, like I'll just give you one example, is quality at the source is that the trade, as a part of their steps before they left rough openings, which were standardized, and their door frames, they had jig is what they call it, or a template, and the crew was instructed that step one was to check with the templates, and then the templates actually were to be attached to the rolling carts. They're rolling gang boxes. And if you rolled the gang boxes out of the way, you would have to separately carry these big templates. So the smarter idea is to go put the templates in place to check the door openings and the window openings to make sure that they're perfect and square. Then they go on the cart, then you roll the cart, and so there was human motivation to go do the checks quality at the source before they left. That's just one simple example. There's so many different examples, but the concept is stop relying on inspection and enhance your ability to install with quality at the source. And in fact, on the Bioscience Research Laboratory, every morning I would say, anybody, you see something wrong, smell something wrong, hear something wrong, touch something wrong, whatever, universe discerns something's wrong, you stop the work, huddle as a crew, and you fix it before we pass it down the line. And my statement was, I'm not sending RFIs into fixed defects. If it's a column that we place wrong, we're going to tear it down. If it's drywall that's installed improperly with the wrong screw pattern, we're going to fix it right as we go. If it doesn't have the 1/4 inch gap, we're going to go ahead and cut that out before we move on. We are not going to proceed until we have quality at the source. And so instead of a product moving, it's our process. So the key is when we have zone control with handoffs, can we make sure that we have the right automation with the human touch or error proofing systems before the crew moves on themselves and not have to rely too much on inspection. Worst case scenario, do zone control walks and inspect it one piece at a time. So this is a beautiful concept, and the call to action is ask the question, if we can't inspect this, how would we make sure it was right? And if we do that more and more, we're going to get better and better at quality at the source. I'm going to turn this into a blog post and invite you to have fun with this. It's an amazing concept. On we go.